The void is empty according to alien sensors. The human warship that once shadowed every screen is no more. Yet the alien armada falls back, engines flaring. Disquiet flickers over enemy channels. If the warship is truly sunk, why are they fleeing in panic? So, a threat they think to have been hidden and waiting nearby. In the hours before the warship vanished, it had raved through the alien lines, shredding battleships and scattering cruisers with horrific ease. Blazing beams pierced the dark, and shockwaves swept the full array of sensor readouts. Outnumbered, but constantly outsmarted, the aliens found themselves at every turn of the countervase. There were no flank assaults that trapped the huge vessel. Uncanny targeting arrays thwarted stealth strikes. The alien crew speculation was that humanity had far better hardware than the aliens had thought possible. Then its transmissions went silent, without warning. Its reactor signature disappeared from the grid. Alien onlookers claimed to see a quick surge of lancing alien energy at the center of human formation. A tiny rift opened only to fall back in on itself. A burst of static blinded sensor. By the time the images resolved, the warship was just gone. No hull fragments drifting, no fading traces of reactors. It was as though the massive dreadnought had evaporated into the vacuum. Normally, such a thing would trigger celebratory outbursts. In fact, alien commanders celebrated at first. Fleet reports described the warship as destroyed or lost in a doomed experimental jump. Victory was announced on broad channels, and forward units were directed to take the strategic initiative before organic reinforcements could show. But something wasn't kosher. Scattered battle logs referenced that the warship's last volley had taken out only a fraction of its targets, as if the ship had held its fire at the last moment. Odd anomalies lingered on scanners, flickers that could have meant cloaked drones or lingering signature beacons. Rather than pressing ahead, many alien captains had engines in reverse. Their confidence faltered, displaced by an insistent feeling that the warship's disappearance had been too sudden, too tidy. The High Command wanted explanations. Tacticians flooded sensor data with scrutiny, looking for any indication that the humans had fielded a new stealth system. Some argued it was an ambush tactic, that the ship still prowled behind fields of jamming. Others speculated that the humans had seized an experimental jump drive to reposition the warship. In any event, the specter of its return hung like a quiet threat. Uncertainties gnawed at the ranks of alien crews got skittish, reporting dim echoes of activity from faraway quadrants. Freighters did glimpse shadowy forms that disappeared under analysis. Even the normally unflappable alien admirals expressed suspicion that humanity had staged a master ruse. After all, every previous encounter with the warship demonstrated it was almost invulnerable. If it really had been destroyed, why was morale among alien forces still tense? As rumors proliferated, the aliens remembered the vessel's old exploits. It had withstood direct blows that would have vaporized lesser vessels. It had sprung from ion storms, and it had fled from black hole proximities. And the galaxy got a painful lesson on all three occasions. Humans are very good at having entirely appending plans. Instead, with the warship gone, the alien armada now had no respite, only deepening fear. Security procedures have been tightened. Patrols doubled in number, checking every likely hiding place. But the signs were ambiguous yet. A flotsam of plating here, an unknown sensor ping there. Never enough to place the warship definitively. This arising paranoia built on itself. Forces that once strode confidently into battle now doubted every read. If the warship had indeed vanished, how had it managed to do so without the remainder of a credible trail? Speculation ran rampant within command centers. Perhaps the vessel had activated a prototype fold drive and was gearing up to attack from an obscured vantage. Perhaps it had hybridized with emerging technologies acquired from previous conquests. Some alien strategists even speculated that the humans had purposely sacrificed the warship, intending to lure the invaders further into human territory. Each theory appeared as reasonable as the next. But the less comfortable truth was that the alien fleets never freed themselves from the fear of something waiting in the darkness beyond, just beyond, their grasp. Messages from the front told the same story: cautious withdrawals, half-swallowed offensives, and a reluctance to commit to any campaign fully. Just the potential for the warship's sudden reemergence was enough to start chewing on their momentum. By all numbers, they were superior, and yet they felt trapped as immaterialized by the stone-cold memory of the unstoppable human behemoth. No amount of confirming by their sensors that the warship was not out there would extinguish the suspicion that it was, perhaps hidden beneath darkness or waiting amid an asteroid swarm. That fear lingers, and so it has always been, clouding over any notion of a victory. Why celebrate a conquest left, as it seemed, half-baked? The unknown can be much scarier than a visible threat. The question lingered through hushed conference rooms and deep space carriers. Had the human warship really found its grave? Or was this the lull before an even deadlier storm? The longer the days went on without definitive evidence, the more the tension escalated. The aliens had never faced such a puzzle, and their entire war doctrine started to disintegrate under the stress of doubt. Their tactical manuals provided no guidance for fighting an enemy that might have surpassed every known constraint. What tormented them the most was the insistent whisper that humanity had outsmarted them once more, that absence had become the ultimate weapon in a war of the minds. If the warship was capable of disappearing so completely, who was to know what else it might do? Legends of the warship spread far across the stars, forged by innumerable battles at which it had always seemed unstoppable. Alien fleets had learned to identify its menacing silhouette, studded with rail cannons and particle lances. Wherever it went, the momentum turned. Numerous human ships flocked to its fire, ridding themselves of aggressors that felt invincible. Diligently, it took notice and acted on behalf of countless worlds that required intervention. Before long, even the mention of its presence in a combat area would cause less disciplined enemy crews to break into a panic. The warship's reputation for clever tactics and devastating firepower had turned into a living myth, one bolstered by an unbroken string of victories. Some alien officers argued that humanity had invested its entire technological edge in the construction of that one ship. Others insisted that humans had found advanced remains of an ancient race. But with its apparent disappearance, an entire galaxy experienced a paradigm shift. Endless transmissions prowl among alien high command. Countless others congratulated themselves for having endured the warship's might. But under that swagger, another alarm flared. Intercepted communications showed top generals ordering their fleets to hold fast or even fall back to safer coordinates. Their orders dripped with anxiety and the expectation that the warship might reappear at any moment. As the directives were spread, alien squads began to become jittery. They recognized the contradictory nature of their superiors' commands. They had been told, on one hand, that the warship was gone, and on the other, that they should proceed with extreme caution. Gangs stepped into their ships with glum faces, searching the blackness for some sign of movement. Nobody wanted to be caught out in the open if that hellish vessel showed up again. Meanwhile, human interceptors were listening to alien frequencies. Though they had no confirmation about the warship's fate, they acknowledged the psychological impact it continued to have. The story of whole fleets of aliens pausing in their tracks, even reversing course in the face of mild resistance, filtered back to Earth's channels. Civilians around the world breathed a bit easier, thinking their mightiest weapon had yet to make its home. There, just beyond mortal apprehension. Rumors multiplied at backwater stations and frontier posts. Some claimed that the warship had achieved a higher dimensional state and returned only at critical junctures to rain destruction down. Others said it had perfected a cloaking device that was beyond anything that had ever been known. In smoky bars on distant worlds, traders swore they had seen a brief, strange distortion creeping against starlight, like a giant form prowling unseen. Panic ensued among the alien ranks, with conflicting reports breeding fear. One scout ship reported sensing a massive gravitational disturbance following in its wake, only to discover, upon investigation, that there was no physical presence. Another squadron said their systems had briefly gone down, as though they were hit by an electromagnetic pulse. Each time a fresh anomaly popped up, the initial deduction was static: the warship is near. If they could not confirm or deny these suspicions, they could at least watch as their forces slipped from their control. Officers heatedly debated whether to press the advantage or dig in defensively. Some advocated for a direct assault on Earth, hoping to catch humanity with its pants down. Others balked, waiting for ironclad assurances that the warship would not materialize in their path. The tension froze whole fleets. At clandestine outposts, grew these intercepts played and played the human strategists. It was hard for them to believe the fear had become that entrenched. And even without the visible support of the warship, the aliens were wavering. The humans sent small strike teams to take advantage of this ambiguity, leading to retreat after retreat with few casualties. The warship's shadow, whether seen or unseen, extended to every major front. The real question roiling through every channel: did the warship itself pull off this masterful hoax? Had it somehow forced its own disappearance in a bid to sap alien morale? Or had it been truly gone, its influence lingering on as proof of its potency? No one had the answer. Yet as the standoff intensified, it was becoming clear that a missing warship could be scarier than a warship all there, at least to enemies who feared its unstoppable power. Far above a remote planet ravaged by recent wars hung an alien recon ship. It was to catalog the wreckage left in the wake of the human offensive. The sector was littered with twisted metal, exploded hull remnants, and drifting satellites like a cemetery in space. Scanners on the wrecked ship swept the debris field, looking for salvageable material or clues as to the warship's fate. On the second day of their survey, the crew detected a weak, wobbly signal. It pulsed at a rate that felt vaguely like human encryption, but it blinked on and off randomly. They were curious, so they locked onto it, trying to parse the data. The messages were jumbled, with half-finished thoughts and bursts of static. But some particular fragments made their blood run cold. Cannot be, still here, and hold formation. Initially, the aliens thought it was a blip from a busted human comm relay, but they were baffled by how strong the signal was. It didn't act like an echo, but like a random snippet. It felt almost sentient, moving between channels with calculated precision, as if evolving to not be caught. One night, a more coherent phrase broke through. Engines nominal. Stealth engaged. The wreck crew froze. Is this the warship itself, broadcasting clues of its existence? It got the word out to the alien leadership. They analyzed the transmissions, feeding them through sophisticated decryption algorithms. Most concluded that if the warship had survived, it could be damaged, sending out random automated codes in a haphazard loop. A minority argued that these transmissions might be a highly sophisticated human ruse, designed to intensify existing fear. Either way, the impact was instant. Fleet commanders across the world demanded updates, freezing any forward motion until the situation became clearer. As the wrecked ship went deeper, more and more unexplained anomalies were found. Sensor logs reported impossible readings, gravitational anomalies manifesting in sectors with no recorded mass, ion trails forming in empty coordinate space, only to dissipate moments later. The haunting visual feeds picking up ephemeral shapes matching the warship's signature hull profiles. But every time they attempted to verify, the phenomenon vanished. In frustration, a fleet officer ordered the largest clusters of debris to be swept at close range, suspecting that the warship could be hiding among them. Drones buzzed through the jagged fields of metal, searching every nook and cranny. They found riveted fighter wings, plating from capital ships, and an occasional errant turret. But the dimensions did not match up with any known warship hull. One drone, though, did return a cryptic final image before contact was lost. What it revealed was what seemed to be a giant outline, pale as a ghost, lying in sediment behind layers of wreckage. The wreck crew quickly launched a search for the missing drone, but it never made a peep. Believing that something remained slithering in the debris field, the ship's captain ordered a complete retreat. But Washington wanted something concrete. They needed to find out if the dreaded human warship really haunted that area. Atmospherics grew tense amongst the alien crew. Others demanded to scour the site until they found conclusive proof. Others contended that remaining there would spell certain doom if the warship was in fact operational. Panic spread through the hallways, the image of the vessel's relentless shelling fresh in their minds. One fully operating your warship could wipe out their lightly armed wreck ship in seconds. As that debate raged, the mysterious signal went on the move again. Now it carried a brief but ominous message: strike group, remain hidden, awaiting command. It was so distorted from so many reflections that the wreck ship's communications experts couldn't trace its source at all, and no location proved possible to determine. If this was an actual human directive, it meant they had a scheme far greater. Maybe the whole strike group was lying in wait, ready to pounce on the aliens. News of these disquieting discoveries reached alien admirals elsewhere in the sector. Many had already suspected this to be a trap, but these partial transmissions made them believe that an even bigger threat could be at stake. Commanders called off offensives, consolidating their forces to secure potential infiltration routes. Defensive zones grew around important strategic sites, sapping resources from scheduled captures. One morsel of intangible bite now commanded the entirety of the war effort. In the face of increasing paranoia, some aliens tried to rationalize that the signal might be an ancient recording activated by random cosmic interference. But whenever they attempted to ignore it, new pings would surface. Drones failed, battleships registered temporary system failures, and infiltration teams found hidden beacons that transmitted ghostly signals imitating the warship's codes. It was as if humanity was daring them, reminding them that the battleship's ghost remained. A tense silence swept through the ranks. Fleet admirals formed emergency councils to study star maps, realigning supply lines to prepare for a possible large-scale counterattack. Even the most doubting of them had to admit the warship's effect lasted. If it was actually destroyed, how were these signals operating in real time? Why did so many sensor disruptions correlate with the vessel's known power signature? He found no clean answer to the puzzle. As fear mounted, the aliens found themselves trapped in a vicious cycle. The more they sought confirmation, the more anomalies they did find. And with every anomaly they encountered, their dread deepened. By now, full fleets had turned around, unwilling to blindly venture into an area that might be infested with hidden signs of human forces. The once purposeful foray into human territory stalled, allowing defenders to regroup and burrow. From the perspective of their wrecked ship, too, aliens observed a galaxy that trembled under what might or might not be the unseen ghost of a warship. No direct confrontation occurred, but just the tension drained the aliens' morale. The signals, those maddening, flickering transmissions, were a reminders, the biggest threat is the one you can't see. And so, their uneasy watch went on, haunted by the warship's distant echo and the threat of ambush at every star. In a distant corner of the cosmos, an extraterrestrial task force gathered for one last try at the riddle. A formation of battleships with fast-moving escorts on either side. Their orders were simple. Investigate the suspected hiding grounds, flush out any concealed vessels if they might be present, and ascertain once and for all if the human warship still existed. Tension crackled on all decks as the crews readied themselves for any eventuality. Once they dove into the sector, their sensors lit up with ghostly traces. Dozens of ships darted here and there, appearing and disappearing seemingly at random. Pulse blasts flared in the void, but each was targeted at an empty grid space. Alarm klaxons blared. The battleships created an invisible grid, looking for real enemy combatants. But they only encountered mirages, signals that matched the warship systems but had no physical source. Then, in a sudden twist, the illusions merged into a single, concentrated reading. One of the battleships locked onto it, announcing they had the warship on scope. The unmistakable silhouette loomed, and cameras zoomed, revealing a hulking shape with faint lights nestled along its spine. Cheers of fear and exhilaration rolled through the alien task force. This was it. The endgame had arrived. They returned fire, launching a storm of torpedoes and beam weapons. Molten wreckage was scattered as explosions erupted around the target. Brave fighters swooped in to confirm the kill. But when the smoke settled, there was nothing. All their scans revealed was drifting spines of ancient wreckage. No core signature, no sign of the warship's keel. The shadow had been a projection, another wily Sachiko. Disbelief rattled the crews. Were the humans producing illusions so lifelike that even sophisticated instruments were deceived? The report was the same on every battleship, chasing down glinting shapes that dissolved as soon as they struck. Missiles spent, fuel stockpiles exhausted, and morale in free fall. It didn't matter how many times they locked on. Empty space was the same result. In a desperate move, the alien admiralty had ordered a wide-frequency broadcast, a challenge to the human warship. They transmitted their coordinates, challenging it to engage them openly if it still existed. Silence followed. Some in the task force held on to the hope that this daring action would elicit an actual response. Others feared what could follow if the warship responded. Hours of waiting, and a new signal crackled on the assigned frequency. The voice, garbled by static, was unmistakably human. "We needed no illusions to subdue you," it said. "You hide from an echo, but the real danger passes hidden." A thundering murmur rippled through the alien crews. Was the warship itself just speaking, or was it a recording spurred by their broadcast? Panic flared. The whole task force was scanning in every direction. System failures broke out as if on cue. Battleship hulls reported sudden power drains. Sensor arrays trembled with fractured data. There were alerts of near misses with unmarked objects. It was like an invisible attack, but no real shots were fired. The aliens were fighting their own technology, frozen in fear. Then came the crushing blow to their nerves. The internal cameras in one cruiser had caught grainy footage from a corridor window of a massive shape sweeping past. Scale was impossible to verify, but the silhouette bore a haunting resemblance to the long-missing warship. Moments afterward, the cruiser's reactor overheated. Crew members fled as fire poured out onto the deck. In the tumult, blacked-out screens across the task force flickered with one human-readable phrase: "Surrender your illusions." Afraid of a trap, the alien admiralty ordered an immediate withdrawal. Their mission, armed, many and well-planned, had devolved into chaos and senseless violence. They never encountered a living foe, only phantoms and inscrutable log tapes. But it still felt like the warship loomed above every move, pulling strings of their destruction. News of this fiasco spread through the alien hierarchy like wildfire. It broke what little confidence they had left. If indeed humanity had mastered the art of converting a mere emptiness to a deadly battlefield of the mind, their enemies could not stand. Some alien commanders concluded the warship had indeed been destroyed physically, but its advanced systems had survived and manifested as a new form of warfare, one capable of spinning fear across the stars. Others demanded that the craft remained whole, merely hidden behind unimaginable stealth. Either scenario was too upsetting to overlook. The outcome was the same. Entire fleets were unwilling to risk open engagement. They no longer trusted any sensor readouts or official statements. Paranoia flooded the chain of command, distorting the alien hierarchy. Human observers watched the aliens systematically unravel from hidden vantage points. Their biggest ship could be gone or hiding. Nobody seemed to know. But the impact was undeniable. Each fraudulent signature and decoy changed everything. The galaxy was witnessing the wraith of a sobering fact. You don't need a great warship to go and conquer your enemies when their minds were already conquered by the mere thought of one. That lesson reverberated among star systems. Some speculated that humans had developed a new game, weaponized fear. The illusions, the stray signals, the cryptic messages, all pieces of a tapestry of psychological warfare. Not knowing who or what they fought, the aliens found it simpler to flee and to fight. The ship, real or phantom, clutched them in a vice of relentless anxiety. As the task force returned painfully to base, leaders throughout the alien empire faced a harsh truth. They had been defeated, not by raw power, but by the intangible shadow of an enemy they could not confirm. But the question remained, was the warship directing this from the shadows, or had it itself become something greater? In a fit of panic, alien fleets retreated from contested sectors, relinquishing territories they had labored for decades to secure. The exodus affected dozens of sectors. Whole squadrons jumped at maximum FTL velocity. Their speed exceeded the supply lines behind them, leaving in their wake scattered outposts that had no support. Confusion reigned, multiplied with rumors of a new monstrous human weapon. On alien homeworlds, leaders scrambled to regroup what remained of their forces. Public broadcasts sought to dispel the rising panic, asserting that the Phantom warship was nothing but a propaganda instrument. But none of these assurances pacified the returning troops, whose haunted faces said it all. They had seen hallucinations precise enough to be undetectable by scanners. They had lost crew members to unfathomable malfunctions that came right on time. The most damning of all was the humbling fact that their cutting-edge battle techniques had crumbled before an enemy they never encountered. As the disorganized fleets gathered in a last stand, new waves of alerts shook their command centers. Various remote strongholds reported having seen the debris, twisted scrap metal wreckage resembling that of the warship. In each instance, the shards had faint energy signatures, as if ripped from an active reactor core a day or so prior. The timing was just too suspicious to shake off. Had the humans figured a way to smatter portions of the warship over light years, deploy what became parsecs of them as beacons that could either mislead or frighten? Under intense council meetings, alien admirals debated a huge blow to eliminate the indescribable threat once and for all. Others called for an invasion on Earth itself, believing that only direct confrontation could unveil the truth. Others demurred, arguing that every effort to face the warship had ended in confusion and retreat. Their arguments escalated. Paranoia seeped through every level of authority. Maybe hidden human agents are feeding them misinformation or playing up their internal divisions. Then the final tipping point arrived. Suddenly, a massive burst of energy bloomed close to a vital alien starbase, an important piece in directing their entire war machine. The sensor logs had tracked it matching nearly exactly the warship's last known reactor profile. Panic erupted. Cloaked above it, the starbase prepared for war while locking down every approach. Fleets rushed to intercept, establishing a broad barrier of cannons and missile platforms. News networks issued dire warnings that the unstoppable human warship had returned in force. But the crowd never coalesced into a physical target. Hours went by with no sign of real ships. Instead, starbase systems began to fail one by one. Doors sealed unpredictably. Communications jammed. Its defense turrets training on inhospitable hallways. A horrible voice echoed through the station's intercoms, repeating a single sentence in jarring alien dialect. "You see us all around you because you fear us." That was when the aliens discovered they were battling their own nightmares. The warship had not appeared in the ordinary way, but its echo disabled them far more damagingly than any direct attack. Crews deserted their posts, certain that the dreadnought's own guns would soon melt their hulls. Somewhere, as the starbase command staff screamed for order, chaos swallowed them. Within 24 hours, the station was mostly empty, its residents dispersed to smaller, less tactically important safe havens. The same pattern repeated across alien territory. Flashes of sensor data heralding the warship's presence in arbitrary sectors. Messaged no trace, just distorted messages. Other reports of sabotage or meltdown with no clear suspect. Illusions and half-truths, as always, did the work of 1,000 warships. Alien leaders, in despair, broadcast pleas for negotiation. They wanted to negotiate a ceasefire, even if no official human messenger had asked for one. Finally, one transmission came in from a place near where the original battle had been fought. The message was brief. "We have no warship for you to fight. You fight only with the remnants it created." Then it cut to static. The shock of that revelation rippled out immediately. Was it possible the warship was actually gone, and that the humans had worked advanced decoys, psychological tactics, and leftover technology to make the image last? The answer offered no solace. If anything, it only intensified the aliens' fear. For if mankind had built this caliber of influence without their coveted dreadnought, what else had they accomplished? Fleets scrambled their blind retreats, propelled by an enemy no one might see, and that was everywhere. Their own superiority in numbers and weaponry no longer mattered against an enemy that had weaponized emptiness. Foreseen on neutral worlds, observers gaped. The unstoppable alien armada had turned into a herd of panicked vessels, fleeing phantoms created from their own imaginations. The rumors of something worse than a warship transcended such notions. The humans had transcended mere physical conflict, many claimed, using psychic and mind-rending technologies to fight a war that could not be fought. Others speculated that the warship had wounded with and coalesced with a dimension beyond normal space, capable of striking from unseen angles. In fact, no one had answers at all, and that lack of certainty was more devastating than any superweapon. By the time the alien high command finally managed to regroup, half their front lines had shattered. Every day, there was fresh proof that the warship's presence remained, even if it never fired another round. This was psychological warfare at its most dazzling. a grand chess move that locked an entire empire in place, paralyzed by a piece that might not even be left on the board. The blackest day in the Aldrich history, yet it was the moment the galaxy saw a breathtaking realignment. The humans, who had been attacked on so many fronts, had space to breathe, to rebuild. Their outposts grew, commercial lanes thawed, and allied nations lined up in support. Meanwhile, alien forces crumbled like leaves on a stormy day, too riddled with doubt to put up a united front. Its giant war machine had pressed against human worlds, but it unraveled under the weight of a rumor. Through countless star systems, the tale of the missing warship traveled like wildfire. Storytellers explained how, once upon a time, there had been one vessel all sectors feared, and it appeared to have ascended to the realm of myth. They talked about illusions so vivid that whole fleets vaporized their torpedoes into empty space, and signals so clever that admirals left their stations to chase ghosts. The memory of the warship lay somewhere more vibrant than any ship or construction could ever be. Among humans, relief and triumph mixed with heartbreak. But many mourned the better-proven reality that the warship was lost, its valiant crew sacrificed in that final flash of light. But the impact of its speculated return was inescapable. Alien columns that had once pressed forward without hesitation were now retreating and splintering into units. Having seen just how easily the warship could outwit them, they opted for survival over confrontation. Without warship's physical presence, humanity's strategic leverage shot through the roof. Observers in neutral quarters marveled at how quickly the tide had turned. They no longer stared into the face of the unstoppable alien coalition. Instead, they saw shaken admirals, tormented by a single question. If the warship is really gone, why does our fear remain? Markets turned, alliances adapted, and diplomatic lines opened back toward Earth. Ancient grudges were put aside, supplanted by new deference to a species that had demonstrated an ability to rewrite the rules of engagement. Made up of the aliens who would not escape, pockets of resistance attempted to adjust. They retrained crews to withstand psychological pressure, deployed advanced AI to filter out misleading signals, and devised protocols to establish visual contact. But these steps offered little solace. Whenever a sensor anomaly was identified, discipline broke down. The ghost of the warship had a quality of life to it, not in a corporeal way, but as an entity that would not be contained within the bounds of reason. In quiet war rooms, alien strategists questioned whether they had ever understood humanity at all. The warship had once been considered the ultimate in brute force, but was that the whole story? Perhaps the humans had anticipated its loss from the day they commissioned it, designing contingencies that made the vessel's disappearance a strategic advantage. Or maybe the warship was beyond normal space, the illusions fueling from some other space not bound to mortal senses. Earth never issued an official statement to clarify the truth. Human spokesmen claimed he was unaware of the ship's fate, neither confirming nor denying rumors. They allowed the alien fears to run free, each new rumor contributing to a fog of uncertainty. For it was in their interest as human beings to keep their enemies guessing. Why ruin a psychological edge by revealing that the warship was, indeed, gone? Yet, on some frequencies, weak transmissions occasionally appeared, fragments of the warship's former code, or of coded warnings that fit its operational profile. These echoes appeared perfectly timed to coincide with alien troop movements, always pushing them away from important human targets. By coincidence or design, they occasionally made sure the aliens' paranoia never diminished. Over time, the legacy of the warship overshadowed that of any normal fleet. Long after its last battle, it had become a symbol of resilience and cunning, a shadow upon the cosmos. On liberated planets, humans erected memorials. The day the warship disappeared, pilots recounted tales of how its illusions saved them from sure defeat. Children heard tales of a legendary guardian who was still watching over them at a distance. And so the great question remained. Had the warship been destroyed, or had it become something more terrifying than a single metal hull? To the aliens who gazed into the quiet void of space, the answer barely mattered. They had watched as their armada cracked under the mere thought of the ship still being out there. For them, the warship had never been defeated, a ghost that always haunted their flight routes and ruined their sleep. Ultimately, The galaxy has come to learn a chilling reality. Fear is a weapon that does not require a trigger once sown. Whether the human warship now lay strewn as cosmic dust or remained afloat unseen, it had become an idea, one no scanner could detect, no missile could kill. Under their eternal gaze, the aliens ran, never quite sure if they were really safe. And that one doubt was enough to change the course of history. After all, a disappeared threat can overshadow any fleet of battleships. Also, but one thing was for sure. The legends would grow, and the galaxy would never forget how one fearsome ship vanished from the cosmos, its wake a dread no empire could escape.